games. Breaking news and disappointing news for Europe and for Viktor Hovland, because he is unable to play in today's Sunday singles. He had to pull out of yesterday's afternoon session with a neck injury.
Would you wish that this would be looked at to maybe find an alternative if a player is injured moving forward?
Yeah, it has to change.
Do you have any ideas?
I have a few ideas, but I'm not going to tell you right now. But I mean, the rule has to change.
Bryson DeChambeau just called out Viktor Hovland and the entire Ryder Cup rulebook, sparking one of golf's most explosive controversies in years. What started as a neck injury withdrawal turned into an asterisk accusation that's splitting the sport in half. But trust me, there's way more to this story, and I've got every wild detail.
Yeah, I mean, it was 25% of the points they needed to win, and nothing against Viktor. I'm sure he's hurt and everything, but that rule has to change. Obviously, I think it's obvious now.
It started as a standard Sunday at the Ryder Cup, but Bethpage Black doesn't do standard. Just before the singles matches, Viktor Hovland, Europe's golden boy, the one who never flinches under pressure, withdrew with a sudden neck flare-up. Cue the activation of golf's most controversial protocol, the envelope rule. Each captain writes one name before the singles, sealing it away like a prophecy. If the other side loses a player, that name sits out, and the match becomes an automatic draw. This time, it was Harris English, Keegan Bradley's envelope choice, who got benched without swinging a club. The US lost a live point opportunity before play even began, a procedural twist that sliced through the American locker room like a paper cut on national pride. Suddenly, the math was different. Instead of 12 singles, there were 11. Instead of a clear comeback path, a gray cloud of "what if" hovered over the greens. And just as the crowd tried to process it, word leaked that Hovland's withdrawal wasn't catastrophic, precautionary even. The optics? Terrible. The timing? Worse. Fans in red, white, and blue weren't just booing the rule, they were booing fate itself. Bethpage's rowdy New York crowd, never shy, never polite, let Europe feel the noise. The Ryder Cup had turned from competition into courtroom, and the first witness was a sealed envelope. To understand why the envelope rule detonated, you have to understand what it's meant to prevent: chaos. The rule exists to stop late-game substitutions and prevent endless debate over who should fill in for an injured player. On paper, it's elegant. In practice, it's a match-play landmine. At Bethpage, it turned a live, breathing showdown between Viktor Hovland and Harris English into a ghost match. Both players frozen out, both teams receiving half a point. Half a point doesn't sound like much until it changes everything. The US entered Sunday needing a miracle comeback. Every live match mattered, every putt a pulse. By losing a match to paperwork, the Americans lost a heartbeat. That half point halved their hope. Keegan Bradley, visibly agitated post-match, didn't mince words. "The rule has to change," he told Golf Monthly, echoing what Bryson would later voice with far less diplomacy. European captain Luke Donald defended the process, saying, "These are the rules we all agreed to." Fair point, but it didn't quiet the outrage. On social media, fans called it the rule that killed the comeback. And there's irony in abundance here. The envelope rule was meant to protect fairness, not to question it. Yet by following the rulebook, the Cup found itself in controversy. One withdrawal, one envelope, one halved match. The kind of bureaucratic poetry that only sports can write. And Bryson DeChambeau was about to underline it in Sharpie. Hold up. Before we go deeper into Bryson's fury, hit that like button if you think the envelope rule needs to change. Because what happens next? Yeah, it might just rewrite Ryder Cup history. Moments after Europe lifted the trophy, microphones caught what the crowd had already sensed. Bryson DeChambeau wasn't letting this go. "It's an asterisk," he muttered, the word cutting sharper than any 9-iron. Within minutes, fan videos flooded X and TikTok, looping his quote like a mantra of American frustration. Bryson didn't give a formal interview. He didn't need to. The clip was everywhere. Why did it hit so hard? Because this wasn't your typical PR-safe golfer giving a soundbite. Bryson had just clawed his way back from 5 down against Matt Fitzpatrick in one of the Cup's most dramatic duels. He'd rallied with pure adrenaline, shouting to the crowd, chest pumping, practically willing the US team alive. So when that kind of competitor says asterisk, it feels less like complaint, more like confession. But Europe didn't see passion. They saw petulance. Fans mocked the line, calling it classic Bryson. Commentators dissected every syllable. Some said he was brave for voicing what others only whispered. Others accused him of disrespecting Hovland, who genuinely couldn't swing without pain. The fallout was instant. Hashtags like trended, American outlets debated rule reform, and European pundits gleefully reminded everyone that rules are rules. Yet beneath the sarcasm, the sting remained, that this wasn't a clean loss, but a half-point heartbreak wrapped in red tape. Bryson's muttered word became golf's loudest echo.
I just thought back to what Xander said, it's not over till the whistle blows. I couldn't give up for these guys, and so my thought process was to just keep swimming, just keep moving. I fought my ass off today.
Bryson DeChambeau's frustration didn't erupt in a vacuum. It was forged in one of the most heroic comebacks of the entire weekend. On Sunday, he faced Matt Fitzpatrick, the cool, calculated Englishman who thrives on silence. Fitzpatrick came out blazing, going 5 up by the turn. For most players, that's lights out. For Bryson, it was ignition. What followed was a physics-defying comeback, monstrous drives, fist pumps, and a roar that could be heard across Long Island. He clawed all the way back to have the match, defying both math and momentum. That's why his asterisk comment landed differently. This wasn't a sore loser whining into the wind. It was a player who'd bled every ounce of energy for a team that still fell short. When someone fights that hard and sees the scoreboard altered by an envelope, it doesn't feel procedural. It feels personal. Bryson's emotion was the visible version of what every American player felt behind closed doors, robbed of a fighting chance. Fans who watched his battle saw the raw, unfiltered side of him that golf rarely allows, a spectacle somewhere between a science experiment and a street fight. Even neutral viewers couldn't deny it. Bryson had earned his right to rage. The irony? His very intensity, the same energy that made him a fan magnet, turned him into a lightning rod. Bethpage will remember his comeback, but it will remember his outrage even more.
The envelope rule makes no sense and should be changed. And I understand it was a rule on the book, and I understand it happened in 1991 and 1993. It was stupid then. We change formats all the time, right? The Masters has changed its, cut rules. The Ryder Cup used to be the US against Great Britain and Ireland. Just because something was a rule once doesn't mean that it needs to continue to be a rule. It makes absolutely no sense.
If Bryson's mutter was the match, the pundits were the gasoline. Within hours, every outlet from ESPN to Golf Monthly had weighed in, and no one agreed on anything. American voices like Brandel Chambly and Keegan Bradley's camp called the envelope archaic and spirit-breaking, arguing that it handcuffs the comeback potential of an entire team. Imagine if the Super Bowl had a pre-selected substitute for an injury. Fans would riot, one commentator said on ESPN. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, European analysts rolled their eyes. To them, Bryson's asterisk rant was classic American melodrama, emotional, convenient, and oblivious to the fact that both teams agree to the same rule before play begins. Luke Donald diplomatically dismissed the noise. It's unfortunate, but it's fair. That quote alone drew thousands of quote tweets, half calling him classy, half calling him smug. The debate became cultural, the American cry for reform versus Europe's defense of tradition. Bryson's single word fractured golf's gentlemanly facade into something resembling a global comment section. Suddenly, the sport known for quiet galleries and whispered etiquette was trending for shouting matches. But here's the twist. Beneath all the noise, everyone agreed on one thing. The envelope rule works, but it hurts. It's fair on paper, brutal in practice. And that's why Bryson's fury found traction. He said what everyone knows, but no one dares say out loud. Fairness can still feel like theft. Now the fire has moved from the greens to the boardrooms. Committees on both sides, the PGA of America and Ryder Cup Europe, have quietly placed the envelope rule on their post-Bethpage agendas. Forbes reports that early proposals range from allowing designated substitutes to introducing a points protection clause that prevents automatic halves. Translation: Bryson's muttered asterisk just triggered a bureaucratic earthquake. Keegan Bradley's formal comments after the loss, "The rule has to change," gave the movement structure. But Bryson's raw emotional outburst gave it fuel. Every viral clip, every pundit debate, every outraged tweet has forced golf's policymakers to admit something about the rule feels outdated. Even if no immediate change comes before 2027's Ryder Cup at Adair Manor, the conversation has already shifted. As for Bryson himself, this saga cements his paradoxical legacy. Part hero, part headline. He's the player who turns every technicality into theater, every grievance into a movement. To some, he's golf's necessary rebel. To others, he's a walking PR hazard. Either way, he's unignorable. Bethpage's echoes haven't faded yet. Because the Ryder Cup isn't just about putts and flags. It's about pride, perception, and now, one controversial envelope that redefined both. This story's far from over. The next Ryder Cup could flip the rulebook upside down. So subscribe, turn on the bell, and stick around. Because the asterisk era, it's just getting started.